I remember landing and thinking, this is it, the start of forever. The sun was warm. The breeze carried that salty sweetness you only get by the ocean, and Daniel looked at me like he couldn't believe his luck. For the first couple of days, it felt like a dream. We clinked champagne glasses on the balcony, laughed until our cheeks hurt, and made love like we had nothing else to prove. I honestly thought I chose right. This is my person. And I meant it. I really did. The first night we arrived, he surprised me with candles and music already playing in the room. He said, "Only the best for my wife." And I believed him. God, I wanted to believe him. We spent hours talking about our future, where we'd live, maybe kids one day. I felt seen, cherished, like nothing could go wrong. But paradise has a way of softening your guard, of making you miss the shadows in the corners. And maybe that's why I didn't see it coming. The signs didn't scream, they whispered. A few late-night work calls, barely explained. A shift in how he held me, like his mind was somewhere else. I told myself he was just adjusting, stressed from the wedding, the travel. But one morning, while he was in the shower, his phone lit up. Just once. One message. And in that split second, everything fell silent inside me. Wish you were in my bed instead. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just memorized the number. I sat there, phone still glowing on the nightstand, hearing the water run in the bathroom like nothing had changed. But everything had. My heart wasn't racing. It was quiet, painfully quiet. I stared at that message like it was written in fire, burning through every wedding vow we'd just spoken days ago. And yet, I didn't move. I didn't snoop. I didn't even open the thread. I just let it sit there, a confirmation I hadn't asked for but couldn't ignore. He came out moments later, wrapped in a towel, smiling like nothing was wrong, and I smiled back. That morning, I played my role. I laughed at his jokes, took selfies with him by the pool, let him hold my hand and twirl me under the sun. I told myself, just breathe, just observe. If there was a storm brewing inside me, I buried it beneath layers of calm. But every time he looked away, I looked at him differently. Not as the man I married, but as someone I no longer recognized. And maybe never really knew. That thought alone nearly took the breath out of me. I started to replay everything. The rushed engagement, the sudden shift in how available he was toward the end of our wedding planning. The friend who didn't come to the wedding after all, the one he used to text often. Things I had brushed off, now forming a new picture in my mind. But I didn't confront him. Not yet. I knew enough to know that confronting a liar before you have a plan is just setting yourself up to bleed. And I wasn't ready to bleed. Not yet. That evening, we went to a beachside restaurant. Candlelight flickered between us, waves crashed gently behind us, and everything looked perfect to anyone watching. He reached across the table, fingers brushing mine, and said, "This is everything I dreamed of." I nodded, smiled, even leaned in for a kiss. And all the while, I could still see that message burned into my memory. Not her name, not her photo, just those words. "Wish you were in my bed instead." Over and over, like a bell I couldn't unring. I started asking myself questions I wasn't ready to answer. Who was she? How long had it been going on? Was it someone I knew? But the bigger question was, why didn't I leave right then? And the truth is, I don't know. Maybe part of me was in shock. Maybe part of me wanted to believe there was still some version of us that could be salvaged. Or maybe, and this is the part that surprised me, maybe I was already planning something, quietly, subconsciously. A seed had been planted the moment that message lit up his screen. I didn't say a word. That night, when we got back to the room, I let him wrap his arms around me and drift off to sleep. I lay there, eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling fan spinning slowly overhead. I thought about the months leading up to the wedding, about how many people had warned me to slow down, about how much I had ignored my gut. And I made a quiet promise to myself, you won't walk away empty-handed. Not this time, not after everything. And just like that, the real honeymoon began. Only he had no idea what I was about to turn it into. The next morning, I woke up before him. His arm was draped across me like nothing had happened, like he hadn't shattered the entire foundation of our marriage with one careless message. I slipped out of bed quietly, grabbed my phone, and started tracing the number. It didn't take long. A few clicks, a reverse search, and there she was. A face I'd seen once or twice in his social circles. Smiling, confident, oblivious. She'd commented on our wedding photos with heart emojis. The irony almost made me laugh. Instead, I closed the screen and walked out onto the balcony. The ocean was breathtaking, but all I could feel was the tightness in my chest. It was like grief, but sharper, more personal. It wasn't just about losing him. It was about being made into a fool. Publicly, quietly, intimately. I stood there, gripping the railing, telling myself over and over, do not react, do not scream, not yet. There's a power in silence. And I was just beginning to understand how strong I could be when I stopped trying to explain myself. By the time he woke up, I had already liked one of her bikini pictures. Just a little breadcrumb, a whisper, a warning. He didn't notice. He kissed my shoulder and asked if I wanted breakfast. I said yes. I even offered to walk to the cafe with him. We held hands down the shoreline like we were still madly in love. But something in me had changed. I wasn't his wife anymore. I was something else. A mirror, a mask, a storm waiting for the perfect moment to land. I became an actress in my own life. Every smile was calculated, every laugh was rehearsed. I made sure to take cute photos of us for Instagram. I tagged him. I played the part so perfectly that even I almost believed it. But underneath that polished exterior, I was watching, always watching. Every time he stepped away to take a work call, I noted the time, the tone in his voice, the fake frustration. I wasn't listening to his excuses anymore. I was collecting them one by one, like evidence in a quiet trial. I started noticing how relaxed he was around me. Too relaxed. That's what betrayal does. It makes people arrogant. He'd lean over and show me something funny on his phone, never thinking I'd dig deeper. But I already had. I knew what app he used to hide messages. I knew her handle. I even found the hotel she was posting from, just a short drive from ours. That was the moment it really hit me. He didn't just betray me. He brought her here, to our honeymoon, our first chapter, and still, I didn't confront him. Not once. Not yet. I kept holding his hand, kept thanking him for planning such a perfect trip, kept playing the part of the woman who was too in love to notice. But I wasn't in love anymore. I was something else entirely, something steadier, something colder. While he was drinking mojitos and kissing my forehead, I was memorizing passwords and downloading bank statements. Every kiss was a countdown. Every smile was a goodbye he hadn't earned yet. There were moments I wanted to scream. When I'd catch him texting with his back turned, or when he'd step out to take a call right after dinner, I could feel the fury rise in my throat like fire. But I swallowed it. Not because it didn't matter, but because it did. I wanted him to keep lying. I needed him to keep digging. Because every time he smiled at me with that smug, clueless face, I was one step closer to turning his world upside down. Some nights, I would lie in bed beside him, pretending to be asleep, while my mind raced through possibilities. Should I confront them both? Expose him in public? Wait until we were home? I went through every version of the story in my head, like a director previewing the final cut. But the one thing that stayed the same in every scenario? I didn't come out looking weak, not this time. He thought he was playing a game. He didn't realize I'd already flipped the board. He kissed me under the moonlight that night, whispering something about how lucky we were. I nodded, let him pull me in, let him feel safe. Because I wasn't his wife anymore. I had stopped being that the moment I saw the truth on his screen. Now I was his shadow, quiet, patient, and always 2 steps behind. Watching him build the lie, watching him tighten the rope, and I was more than ready to watch him hang himself with it. The morning he went jet skiing, I stayed behind and opened my laptop. My hands didn't shake, my breathing didn't falter. It was like my body had been waiting for this, for something concrete to do with all the hurt. I contacted my lawyer first. I didn't even have to explain much. Just the date of the marriage, the full name of the other woman, and a screenshot. She didn't ask if I was sure. I think she could hear it in my voice. I was done being the good wife. Now I was just a woman tying up loose ends. Next, I went into our joint account. I knew the passwords. He'd been sloppy about that. There it was, laid out in digits and transactions. The romantic dinners, the spa visits, the custom gifts he told me were business expenses. I moved half into a private account with my name only. Legally, it was mine to take. Morally, it barely scratched the surface of what he owed me. But it was a start, a quiet shift in power, one he wouldn't even notice until the damage was irreversible. I started keeping digital receipts. Every suspicious charge, every comment from her profile, every text that danced around the truth. I forwarded copies to a private folder, time-stamped and neatly organized. My phone became a vault. My heart, a locked door. He came back from the water smiling, sunburnt and carefree, handing me a drink like nothing had changed. "You should have come," he said. I smiled, took the glass and thought, "Oh, I did. Just not to the same game you're playing." He spent the next few days living in a fantasy, and I let him. He ordered room service like we were still in love, posted selfies with me, called me his queen in captions. I even saw her like a few of those posts. The audacity almost made me laugh, almost. But I had bigger things to focus on, like contacting the airline to change my return flight. I booked it for a day earlier, direct to home, with priority boarding. He wouldn't even realize I was gone until he landed and found the silence waiting for him. Back at the hotel, I took photos of everything, receipts, schedules, his luggage, even the card from the spa where he'd surprised me with a couples massage. The one he claimed was fully booked, yet I found a second name scribbled next to the reservation. I documented everything, not because I wanted revenge, but because I wanted clarity, proof, closure. The truth, in all its ugly glory, saved and backed up twice. I wasn't going to walk away with just pain. I was walking away with power. And he never noticed a thing. That's what stunned me the most. He didn't even flinch when I started double-checking things or asking casual questions about his schedule. He thought I was being sweet, curious. He didn't see the shift, didn't feel the ground moving under him. That's the thing about people like him. They assume the quiet ones won't bite. But I wasn't being quiet because I was scared. I was being quiet because I was done speaking and almost ready to act. The night before I left, I packed my things while he was out grabbing drinks. I folded everything neatly, zipped up my suitcase, and placed it by the door. Not that he noticed. When he returned, he was laughing at a text, some inside joke I wasn't part of. He flopped onto the bed, pulled me close, and whispered, "Best trip ever." I nodded, resting my head against his chest, and counted his heartbeats. It was wild how calm I felt. Like the storm had passed, or maybe it had just taken a new form. I didn't sleep much that night. I watched the clock tick toward 5 a.m. when my cab would pull up. My boarding pass was printed. My bag was ready. Everything I needed was already sent to my lawyer. It felt like slipping into a new skin, one that didn't shrink to make him comfortable, one that didn't cry over someone who wouldn't even flinch if he saw her break. I wasn't leaving a man. I was leaving a shell of a promise. a lie I refused to carry home. When my alarm went off, I got up without waking him. I stood over him for a moment, not out of affection, just to memorize the face of the man I'd once trusted. Then I walked out quietly, without a note, without a kiss, without a backward glance. He gave me betrayal. I gave him a legal signature, the kind you can't erase with sweet talk or crocodile tears. And while he dreamed of someone else in our bed, I was already on my way home, to start rewriting the story myself. He didn't even notice I was gone at first. When I didn't answer his morning texts, he assumed I was at the spa or out for a walk. He sent a selfie by the pool, shirtless, grinning, oblivious. By the time he realized my suitcase was missing, I was already halfway across the ocean, sipping coffee on a quiet morning flight home. I could almost hear his confusion echoing from the hotel room. Where is she? Why isn't she picking up? But I wasn't hiding. I was done explaining myself. When he finally landed back home, I was ready. I knew his flight number, his arrival time, even the gate he'd walk out from. I made sure the driver I hired was parked just far enough to avoid questions. I stood near the exit with my back turned, watching as he strolled out of the terminal, relaxed, a little tired, but still smug. He pulled out his phone, probably ready to text me. That's when I stepped forward, handed him the envelope, and turned around without a word. No tears, no drama, just closure pressed into his palm in the form of divorce papers, printed screenshots, and a single handwritten note. It read, "You were right. This trip changed everything." I didn't wait for his reaction. I didn't care if he called after me, if he opened it right there or tossed it into the trash. That part wasn't mine to control anymore. My part was over the moment he saw my name next to the words, Petitioner Emma Reynolds. I walked away without looking back, heels clicking against the airport floor like punctuation marks. Each step was deliberate, each breath lighter than the last. I didn't need to witness his face twist in shock or his fingers fumble to open that envelope. I had lived in that man's shadow long enough. I wasn't interested in the show. I was the one who wrote the final act. Let him be the audience now. Let him sit in the silence he built around his own betrayal. I got into the car and gave the driver one instruction: don't speak. I stared out the window, watching the city blur past, thinking of every moment I had second-guessed myself. Every instinct I'd ignored. Every time I'd convinced myself he was just busy, or tired, or going through something. But the truth had always been there, waiting for me to stop shrinking and start seeing. And now I didn't need his version of the story. I had my own, and it ended on my terms. By the time he opened that envelope, I imagined the world around him started spinning. The papers were clean. The evidence was clear. There was no wiggle room, no denial. Just the cold, hard reality that I knew everything. That I'd smiled through his lies and outplayed him without raising my voice. I didn't humiliate him. I handed him the mirror, and what he saw in it wasn't my anger. It was his own undoing. Later that night, he tried calling. I saw the screen light up, his name still saved under husband. I let it ring. Then again, and again. I never answered. Eventually, the name disappeared and was replaced by a string of unknown numbers. Desperate attempts from borrowed phones or maybe her line, trying to reach the woman he thought he'd broken. But I wasn't broken. I was untouchable now. I didn't block him out of pettiness. I blocked him out of peace. He left voicemails, long ones. Apologies wrapped in excuses, confusion tangled in pleas. He didn't know when I'd changed the flight. Didn't know when I'd opened the account. Didn't know I'd been watching him fall apart long before he even slipped. I didn't reply to a single word. Because that's the thing about betrayal. Once you see someone's true face, no amount of "I'm sorry" can make you unsee it. I wasn't interested in explanations, only in endings. And this one? It was clean, sharp, precise. There was no screaming, no scene, no second chances. Just a man standing in an airport, holding the weight of his choices in a plain white envelope. And a woman, already halfway into a new life, who had finally decided to stop begging for love and start demanding her worth. The story he tried to write for us ended at the gate, but mine was just getting started. I moved into my new apartment 2 days after the flight. It wasn't huge, but it was mine. Every piece of furniture, every framed photo, every plate in the cupboard chosen with intention. No compromises, no shared opinions, just me. I remember standing in the middle of the living room, barefoot on the wooden floor, with a coffee mug in one hand and a piece I hadn't felt in years wrapping itself around me like a warm blanket. For the first time in a long while, silence didn't feel heavy. It felt like freedom. There were moments, small ones, where my breath caught, folding laundry and finding a shirt he used to love, hearing a song we danced to at the wedding while walking through the grocery store. But those moments passed. I didn't run from them. I didn't drown in them either. I let them come. I let them go. Because grief, I learned, doesn't always come with heartbreak. Sometimes it comes with clarity. And when it does, it doesn't rip you apart. It rebuilds you, piece by stronger piece. I started going on walks alone, cooking for one, smiling at strangers just because. I'd forgotten how light it felt to move through the world without carrying someone else's lies on my back. The air smelled different. Even my reflection looked different. Not sad, not angry, just alive. Like the woman staring back at me had been waiting this whole time for permission to exist again. And now that she had it, there was no going back. I didn't announce the divorce to everyone. I didn't post some cryptic quote or throw a girls' night to celebrate my freedom. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about peace. I told the people who mattered, the ones who would hold space without judgment, without whispering behind my back. Most were shocked. A few weren't. One friend just nodded and said, "About time." And maybe she was right. Maybe part of me had known for longer than I cared to admit. I blocked Daniel on everything. No lingering access, no maybe one day we'll talk. I didn't want him to see my life anymore, not because I was hiding, but because he no longer deserved front row seats to my healing. He lost that privilege the moment he treated me like a placeholder, like an accessory to his double life. And honestly, I didn't want updates on his world either. Whatever mess he made after I walked away, that wasn't mine to clean up. I found joy in the simplest things, watering plants on the windowsill, choosing new bed sheets, drinking wine on a Tuesday night just because I could. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't some cinematic montage of reinvention, but it was real and steady and mine. I wasn't racing to be someone new. I was finally remembering the version of me that had been buried under compromise, shame, and silence. And every day, she came back a little stronger. A few weeks later, I went to the beach. Alone. Same ocean, same sound of waves curling into the sand. But this time, it felt different. I sat with my feet buried in the warm grains, watching families laugh, couples stroll, kids chase seagulls. And for the first time, I didn't feel envious. I didn't feel bitter. I just felt present, whole. Not because I'd forgotten what happened, but because I'd finally let go of needing it to make sense. Some things just fall apart, so you can finally stop holding pieces that cut. I didn't wear my ring. I didn't check my phone. I didn't imagine some dramatic final confrontation. That part of my life was over. And in its place was something quieter, a calm that came not from getting even, but from getting free. I thought about everything he'd taken from me, the trust, the years, the promises. But then I looked around and realized he hadn't taken anything I wasn't strong enough to rebuild, and I was already doing it. I stood up, brushed the sand from my legs, and smiled to myself. This wasn't the ending I expected when I said I do. But maybe it was the one I needed. I came home from my honeymoon without a husband and without regrets.